Hi there, my name's Ed, and I'm a tea head, and today we're going to talk about teaware. Now, teaware is an essential part of gong fu tea, and to start with, it can be a little bit confusing and complicated as to what teaware you need to buy, what materials you should get, and what different brewing vessels you should get, etc, etc. It can be a little bit confusing, and I definitely felt this. So I'm just going to try and explain a little bit about the teaware. So fundamentally, you need three things. You need somewhere to brew the tea, a brewing vessel. You need somewhere to share the tea, to pour it from the brewing vessel. So you have your gong dao bei or fairness cup, and then you have your cups. Now the gong dao bei is basically optional. If you want to pour into just a bigger cup or a bigger mug, then you don't need a gong dao bei. But if you're entertaining guests, or if you want to use little cups, which is more authentic to the gong fu style, then I would recommend getting all three pieces. Now, if you have either those two or three pieces of your teaware, then you're basically doing gong fu brewing. You can't really go too wrong if you've got those three or two pieces. But what if you want to understand more about the different materials, about the different brewing vessels? Well, you're in the right place. So I want to talk quickly about materials. Now, typically there's sort of three categories of materials that you can get. You can get glass, you can get porcelain, and you can get clay. So here's some glass. You know what glass looks like. This is porcelain. You can get different types of porcelain as well. This is sort of like a glazed porcelain. You can look into other types of porcelain if you like. And then there's clay. So how do they differ? Well, to start with, you have heat retention. So glass has the lowest heat retention, porcelain is next best, and then clay has the highest heat retention. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you want to be brewing, if you want to be brewing hotter teas, then you're likely to be using either porcelain or clay. In particular clay, if you're brewing pu'ers, which need to be really hot. And glass, you're going to be looking at white teas, green teas. And the advantage of glass, obviously, is that you can actually see what's going on. So that's cool. So if you know that you're only interested in green teas or white teas, then go for glass. That makes sense. Now, porcelain is sort of the middleman. It can brew cooler teas and hotter teas, and that's fine. Now, what you need to think about also is not just how hot the tea wants to be, but how you're handling the tea. So a teapot, obviously you're far away from the water inside, from the hot water inside. But with a gaiwan, you're handling a gaiwan like this. So if you're brewing hot teas, then you don't want to be brewing hot teas in a glass gaiwan. You want to be brewing it in either in a porcelain gaiwan. And you generally don't want to be putting really hot water into your gaiwan, because you're going to be handling it quite sort of intimately. So that's heat retention. And next is taste. So glass and porcelain, especially glazed porcelain, have no effect on the taste. If you're looking at taste, then clay is your friend. So clay is used to modify the taste, especially with astringent teas. So as I said before, pu'er teas, I'd really recommend using clay pots. This is a Yixing clay pot. And what the clay does, it has a minerality, a latent minerality within the clay that kind of rounds out the astringency of pu'er teas. And thirdly, you're looking at price. So glass and porcelain are going to be the cheaper options. Clay, especially kind of authentic Yixing clay or Chaozhou clay, and if it's especially a handmade pot, it's going to be much more expensive. So if you're not that interested in the properties of clay, then go for glass or go for porcelain. Now next, you're going to have the option of buying different brewing vessels. So the most kind of simple but effective is a teapot. Now you can get porcelain teapots, you can get glass teapots, you can get clay teapots. And if you're, I'd say if you're starting out, I would go for a teapot because it's simple, it's easy, and it's something we're familiar with. Now, if you're a little bit more interested in gong fu tea in general, then I would go for a gaiwan. Now, what a gaiwan allows you to do, gaiwan by the way means cup and lid, or I think cup and lid, yeah. So literally it's just a cup and a lid. What a gaiwan allows you to do is allows you to get more kind of intimate with the tea. It allows you to get closer to the tea. So you've got a kind of a big opening here that you can smell the tea. You can be looking at the tea, especially if you have a glass gaiwan. You can look also. You have a nice lid that you can smell the tea, and yeah, it just gives you a kind of more direct experience of the tea. But an important consideration is the handling, obviously, of the gaiwan. So it takes a little bit of practice, I would say, to be able to kind of, you know, handle and pour with a gaiwan. And sometimes they can get quite hot. So if you don't want to kind of bother with, you know, practicing using a gaiwan and, you know, all that sort of stuff, I would go for a teapot. If you are, then absolutely go for a gaiwan. But if you're in particular interested in pu'er teas, then I would go with a teapot, and I would go with a clay teapot. So, in terms of convenience, obviously, as I said, you kind of either need 2 or 3 pieces for your gongfu tea brewing. If you don't want to bother with any of that, and you want something that's really convenient, compact, if you're a very busy person, or you sort of move around a lot, then I'd go with something like this. I've done a video on this. Unfortunately, the other part of this is broken, but effectively what this is if you go and watch the video, I recommend it's a 2-in-1 piece. So you brew with this, and then you have there's a gong dabe attached to it. So I just had recently had a comment that said that someone can only use this for their gongfu tea because they work on aeroplanes. So that's the only way that they can appreciate gongfu tea. So convenience, number 1, go for something like this, a 2-in-1 compact brewer and decanter. Now obviously, kind of reigning over all of this sort of stuff is aesthetics. For me, one of the really important things about appreciating gongfu tea is how it looks, how it feels. So obviously you can look and see how look and see what something looks like. I think, you know, all of these pieces of teaware are really really nice to look at. Another thing to consider is kind of like feel as well. So how does it feel to pour your teapot, for example? How's it weighted, etc. So that's a real sort of crash course into considering your teaware when it comes to gongfu tea. Now I'm going to be writing a more extensive blog post on this, so if you're interested, go and check that out, and I'll see you later.